You okay?
About.
What's up,
hiccup.
Otaku fam? We are the OtakuCouple back with reactions here for the channel with some more abroad in Japan. Been a while, but he just released this video and it seemed right up our alley. Japanese restaurant versus foreign tourist. Why you're not going in? Feel like it's, regardless of whether that's clickbait or not, I feel like there's some information in here that's probably just good to have for people like us who want to go see Japan one day, and we'll probably frequent Japan pretty often once we are in the position to do so. So thank you guys for the continued support. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe. Every little bit helps. And check out our Patreon link down below for full uncut reaction to TV shows, animes, and movies. Let's hop on in.
So, there's a place in Tokyo that I want to take you for dinner. A place where the chicken is grilled so slowly and meticulously by hand, it practically melts like butter in your mouth. A place where the edamame are so crisp and refreshing, they taste like they've just been plucked from the meadows of Kyoto. A place where the fresh fish is so delicately sliced, it glistens like stars in the night sky. A place where... Oh, wait, never mind. You can't go in there. Well, look, don't worry. I do know a good place around the back of the Sensoji Temple. I think it's called Burger King or something. Let's go there instead. Come on. So recently, a Tokyo restaurant enjoyed some viral success online after declaring only Japanese speakers can enter. Obviously a subtle difference from outright saying Japanese only. But call me Mr. Cynical, but it does seem like the owners found an ingenious loophole to basically ruling out most foreign customers. Now, I've always said if you're moving to Japan, for God's sake, learn the language. You'll find it deeply rewarding, and also as a matter of courtesy. I think it's only right you should learn the language of the country you're moving to. But to come here on holiday for a couple of weeks, I think it's a bit too much to expect foreign tourists to master the world's most complicated language for a few days stumbling around Tokyo. As a tourist in Japan, you pretty much need to know only 5 key phrases to get around, again as a matter of courtesy more than anything. And those phrases are...
This is a pen. Where's Burger
What
King?
I love about this rule is it even rules out people who have been studying Japanese for like 3 to 6 months. If we take a look at the menu, you need to know 3 writing systems to get around this, as well as complicated vocabulary involving fish. That's not something you're going to learn over a casual weekend. Now you might be thinking, well, I'm smart, I've got Google Translate. I'll take a photo of the menu and translate it over into English. And actually it can work pretty damn well, right up until you find an indecipherable handwritten menu. You know, I've walked into restaurants with handwritten menus so complicated, even the finest Japanese scholars of the written word would struggle to understand what the fuck is going on. Still, of course, there's 2 sides to every argument. And in this case, a lot of local restaurants in Tokyo are family-owned businesses reliant on regular customers, usually locals. Repeat customers are the lifeblood of a small business, so it's understandable perhaps that restaurants want to prioritise locals. And the owner of this restaurant argued that foreign customers weren't spending as much money as his regulars as well. But before we crack out the violin, imagine coming to Japan on holiday and being berated just for walking into the wrong restaurant, as happened when a couple walked in and were made to feel guilty for not being able to speak Japanese, and told to bring an interpreter in a completely over-the-top and unkind manner. He also likes to vent his frustration at Japanese customers as well, if they don't like his cooking, God forbid, as we can see in these very happy, upbeat Google restaurant reviews. Cheap and fast are the best, but unfortunately the taste is not good. I hope you try a little harder on the taste. You are a stupid tongue! It's not that the taste isn't good, but cheap and fast food is bad. So you should change your stupidity and go to a restaurant that's expensive and delicious. I'll say it again. Let's go to a restaurant, fucking up, that serves expensive and delicious food. A stupid tongue, the worst kind of tongue that there is. It wasn't tasty. This is a restaurant that seems to be established with regular customers. Price per person, 2,000 to 3,000 yen, 49 likes. I'm glad I was able to write about the fantasies of the garbage scum.
Bro.
Fantasies of the garbage scum. I'm glad I was able to write about the fantasies of the garbage scum of a human who hasn't visited the store. Fantasies of the Garbage Scum, I love it. It's the Tolkien masterpiece
Dude,
I
straight
never
out
knew
of
I needed.
Kitchen
And the
Nightmares.
final, and perhaps most scathing review of all, simply says, shopkeeper with a Paleolithic head. Food 1, service 1, atmosphere 1. You've got to admit, Japanese reviewers are pretty damn savage. Anyway, what if you desperately want to enter this prestigious restaurant and be served by a shopkeeper with a Paleolithic head? How much Japanese would you need to know? How long would it take? And where the hell would you even start? So in this video, I want to go over the 3 main hurdles you'll face when studying Japanese and some potential strategies for getting around it. The rewards of studying Japanese are great. Not only do you get to enter this restaurant, but you get to communicate with 120 million people, gain a whole new way of thinking, and perhaps above all, you can watch Shogun without subtitles. Oh, I need my ship back. Oh, I want to go to Wales. And before we get to the Japanese, I have to say this sort of thing is incredibly rare. You know, I don't want folks thinking that this is the norm, because in 12 years of living here, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've walked into a restaurant and been made to sort of feel uncomfortable for not being Japanese. The topic's especially prescient right now, as over-tourism is a very popular theme in the media. A couple of months ago, I discussed how Kyoto's geisha district of Gion unfortunately decided to ban tourists from certain streets to protect...
Oh, dude, I did see that, though. I think this is the clip. But oh my god, that's like... I'm going to call them all white Karens. Mm-hmm. But it looked like a tour bus full of middle-aged white women, white Karens. And there was a geisha walking the street. And this one woman just pushes through the crowd, running, trying to take a picture in this girl's face. And they're like, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's rude. And that's, like, not allowed anywhere in Japan in general. And it's like, you see this poor geisha trying to, like move away from her, and she just keeps getting in her face with her camera trying to take a picture of her. And it's like, dude, you are what represents everything wrong with our country. And it's like, you wouldn't do that here. No, because that's not kind, or like, that's not what we do. So why would you go to somebody else's country to do the rudest shit? Like, that just blows my mind. And I was just like, oh my god. But I think this is the actual clip for it, because I was like, that pisses me off.
Neighbourhoods after a few incidents, a sad but necessary move to protect that historic quarter of Kyoto and the geisha who still live and work there. Since then, though, every week there's been an onslaught of news stories about over-tourism, about this topic. Like a few weeks ago during Golden Week, one of the busiest weeks of the year, this laughable ANN news report did the rounds showcasing the horrors of an overflowing bin in Kyoto. Oh my god, how will Japan recover from this? I mean, the other day I was walking through Asakusa at night doing some photography, probably about 10 p.m. And I watched a group of very drunken 20-year-old Japanese guys walking towards me, screaming, shouting, slamming half-drunk cans of Strong Zero into the pavement, terrorising pedestrians. And I thought, gosh, if only ANN News were here to cover this incident with their painstakingly
It wasn't me this time.
If a Strong Zero can falls in the forest and there's not a Japanese TV crew to film it, can we still blame the mess on foreign tourists? Yes, we can. Anyway, Kyoto itself benefits massively from tourism. In 2018 alone, it made $8.7 billion. Sheesh. And they would do well to invest the money in handling the very tourists they're profiting from by, I don't know, buying another bin. Should we buy another bin for $8.7 billion? Put another bin out on the busy week? Another bin on the busy week? No? Alright. Still, Kyoto is so last week anyway. Thanks to TikTok, there's a far more tantalising tourist hotspot doing the rounds right now. Tourists have been flocking to a footbridge and a Lawson at the base of Mount Fuji after some TikToks went viral, showcasing the view of Mount Fuji majestically floating in the sky over Lawson, with swarms of tourists descending upon the streets to get the shot, dashing across traffic and causing all-around mayhem for the locals. Now, it might just be me, right, but I don't so much see a floating Mount Fuji over Lawson as Mount Fuji being fucking blocked by Lawson. This is a shit angle, I don't understand. They say beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but this is just bollocks. I don't get it. I don't understand. Who needs the iconic Chureito Pagoda when you can have a concrete footbridge? It wouldn't be a trip to Japan without it. And you have to wonder what kind of wacky, original, brilliant angles that we'll find going viral on TikTok next. You haven't seen Himeji Castle until you've glimpsed it from the Family Mart car park. You simply haven't experienced the King Kakaji Golden Pavilion until you've witnessed it sandwiched between the Coca-Cola vending machines at dawn. You know Itsukushima Shrine doesn't look the same as when it's obstructed by the Daily Yamazaki at sunset. No more fun for anyone. They're going to build a wall 8 feet tall, obstructing this must-see view forever. Necessary or radical, you decide. This issue will be resolved forevermore. Well, that is until everyone discovers the Family Mart just around the corner with the exact same view. Oh God, here we go again.
Oh boy.
Now you might be thinking, wait a minute,
fail at
aren't you the
Japanese?
same guy that claimed you could speak Japanese fluently in 6 months in that video all those years ago, back when you looked good? Well, I maintain it can still be done. I
Damn.
think you can learn to speak Japanese fluently in half a year and have a good conversation. However, what you can't do, viewers, is read my decadent menu and all the kanji characters that come with it. 3 writing systems, 2,200 characters, an undertaking so difficult it takes the average Japanese student 12 years of formal education to master. Again, you might be thinking, nonsense, I can learn kanji characters. Look at this one. It means tree. And it sort of looks like a tree, for God's sake. Of course I can remember that. And this one means fire. And it sort of looks like a bonfire. Easy. All too easy. Absolutely. And tell me, what does this one mean? Well, that one means...
Bro, no.
I want to go home now.
I want to go home now.
Unfortunately, there's no real shortcut to this. Even if you have the world's greatest memory, you can't break the laws of physics. You need all the time you can get to pack these thousands of characters into your head. Now, thankfully, learning kanji is bloody good fun. You can feel the benefit pretty damn fast when you start to look at characters and know what they mean. And I've met people who've been able to learn how to write all 2,200 characters in 18 to 24 months. Hell, it took me about a year to learn 1,000. But make no mistake, to get this done takes years. And once you've learned them, you need to practice them, revise them over and over again, so you don't forget how to write them. If you do want to learn the kanji characters, get yourself this book right here, which teaches you some clever tricks to make sense of the squiggly lines and how to write them. And then combine that with a spaced repetition system like Anki, essentially a digital flashcard system that forces you to constantly recollect what you've just learned, so you don't forget hours and days after. Back when I first moved here, a lot of people I knew were doing language hacking, which sounds a lot cooler than it is, but essentially finding these ways and tips to get around what seems like an insurmountable task. And the people I know who succeeded in learning how to write all 2,200 characters and commit them to memory combined that book with this system and were able to shove all the characters into their head.
Interesting. All right, well, good to know
Learning
for
thousands
us.
of words is one thing, but being able to fluently communicate with the entire sentence structure is essentially reversed and flipped on its head. That will break your brain, as I discovered. Quick example, to say the person speaking with the teacher is my friend. In Japanese you'd say, Sensei to hanashiteru hito wa watashi no tomodachi desu. Which literally translated means, the teacher with speaking person my friend is. Essentially, it's just Yoda. They basically stole the Japanese speech pattern and translated it into English, literally. But to be able to speak like this naturally, there's no real shortcut. You have to keep practicing over and over. Speaking aloud with people, kind of rewiring your brain almost, which takes weeks and months to feel natural. Shuffling all that around in your head is quite the challenge. Now, luckily, there are some useful tips. Number one, when you're speaking Japanese with friends and whatnot, like, don't ever switch back to your native tongue. Don't switch back when you fail to remember a word. Naturally, it's not uncommon for a beginner to start speaking, hit mid-sentence, then realise they don't know the word. Screw it all up and then revert back to their native tongue. Don't do that. Think about what we do in English mid-sentence when we're trying to think of something. We kind of go, some people worse than others, a bad habit. But learn the Japanese for that. And of course, early on when you don't know most of the Japanese vocabulary, there's going to be loads of words you don't know. Rather than switching back to English or fumbling for your dictionary when talking, speaking with a Japanese friend, use explanatory phrases to try and get around it. For example, if you don't know the word chushajo means car park, be like, oh, kuruma tometeru basho wa nanteyu nihongo de? Oh, chushajo. Yeah, okay. What if you don't know the word for scissors? You could be like, kami o kiru mono wa nan to imasu ka? Oh, hasami. Like, that's the way to do it, right? Don't keep going back to your native tongue. Don't get your phone out. Just keep going, ploughing ahead and using ways around it like that. The longer you stay in Japanese, the more you think in Japanese, and the quicker you kind of learn and master the language. Obviously, if you're in Japan, you have a major advantage as you can talk to people around you and you're immersed in it 24/7. But even if you're not here, you can still sit in a quiet room and practice the phrases aloud. And there's so many good resources these days to help you get the job done. Like these books right here, which I recommend each and every one of them, especially this one. But I've saved the biggest reason you'll fail till last. And it's the reason most people I know fail. It's the reason I kind of failed. Originally, I had all sorts of reasons for point 3, like politeness, the complicated politeness, the cultural nuances. But actually, it's a lot simpler than that. So the best way to explain why mastering Japanese is so damn difficult is with this unspeakably crap hand drawing. Sorry, this is all I can do. Learning Japanese is not so much climbing a mountain as an entire bloody mountain range. And it starts with Mount Fuji, a steep, nightmarish incline where the knowledge comes thick and fast, but so does the relentless brutality of the climb itself. But it's in that period that you'll learn the most commonly used words and kanji characters, as well as potentially being completely overwhelmed by it all. And after a year, if you're still committed and you keep on going, you can make it over Mount Fuji and begin the long, arduous climb up Mount Everest, where the challenge is massive but a lot more gradual. You've learned the basics, you can sort of communicate, and it gets a lot easier to wedge all the vocabulary and all the characters into your head. It just takes lots and lots of time. Most folks will fail around here at the start of Mount Fuji, and the reason you'll fail is simple: motivation. When you discover how much you have to learn to get over this first mountain, how much time you have to commit to study, when that dawns on most people, I find they sort of lose steam quite quickly in their studies. I actually started learning Japanese about 2 years before I came here as a teacher. I took like classes on the side of my degree, and I had no motivation because I didn't know if I had a job here waiting for me. I never thought I'd actually end up in Japan. It wasn't until I got here and ended up in a school surrounded by students and teachers and colleagues that I couldn't communicate with that I started to actually go, oh shit, I really want to know Japanese now. It was only then that I really had that powerful motivation to learn. Bit of a flawed strategy, like, oh yeah, I'll learn how to swim after I've dived into the sea. But I know I'm not alone in that. I know I'm not alone in being a bit of an idiot. And I think unless you've got a powerful motivator, like living in Japan, or working in Japan, or knowing for 100% sure that you're going to end up in Japan, then I just don't think you'll have the motivation to see this through and to keep going. I also set myself constant challenges to try and keep pushing me. For example, I did a JLPT language test, I did a speech contest. I had these big silly goals that kept me going and kept pushing me. But even when you do get here, many people discover that they can get by on 3 to 6 months of Japanese and sort of do what they need to do in everyday life. Statistically, you're here and you'll always be here. And there's nothing wrong with that. You only live once, and the most important thing we have is time and how you choose to use your time. And unless you plan to live or work in Japan, or you just want to watch all the anime and manga without subtitles, then this is a massive time investment that might not be a good idea. After 3 years, I switched out my intensive studies of Japanese and switched it to YouTube and filmmaker stuff because that was what I was passionate about and that's what I wanted to do. And sometimes I regret not going further than I did, but I'm proud that I got over the Fuji bit, and I'm glad I got halfway up Everest, because I never thought I'd be able to speak, comprehend or communicate in another language at all, let alone Japanese. I was, as an 18-year-old, I would never have imagined that that was going to happen, so that's pretty fucking cool to me anyway. But if you find your motivation to do something, even the most seemingly impossible task becomes doable. And in the case of learning Japanese, whether it's moving to Japan, doing a JLPT language test or a speech contest, just keep finding ways to challenge yourself and you will stay motivated in the long term. And of course, if you do keep going, if you do become fluent, you can set foot in this restaurant. For that alone, it's a completely worthwhile endeavour, of course.
I want to know if he went into the restaurant.
Well, that was one I think. Was that the one that would you just need to speak the language, or the one that you had to be Japanese to go into?
I guess the one to speak the language, the mean one.
Oh, gotcha. Then yeah, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. But
because I feel like Chris has such a cynical sense of humor too, like just personality. I think that'd be funny to see him with who owns that shop. I think that'd be hilarious.
It's good information for us though, because we want to go to Japan, at least visit it a lot. So it's nice to have a time frame, like 6-ish months. Yeah. To be able to get by is good to know. Yeah. But everything he said made sense, and we got some good tips if we ever really want to sit down and get that motivation to just fully flesh out, learn language all the way through. Definitely. But it's going to be rough. And we knew that, and that's why we haven't started yet. We already don't have a lot of time. We definitely don't have time to learn one of the more complicated languages that there is.
But we're going to get through it. We'll do it.
And we're sorry, Japan, for the tourists.
Yeah.
We know that we're not all good people over here.
We don't claim that side because, my God, that's just...
Yeah.
But with perspective, them talking about how much Kyoto made back in 2018, and then just knowing what happened during COVID.
Yep.
Where it's like, because tourism went away and you weren't bringing in that much money, and it's like, yeah. But I'm excited.
It's the good and the bad, guys. It's the good and the bad. Thank you guys for the continued support. We will see you for the next video. Bye.